Princess Diana's tragic death shook the world, but what if I told you she's still communicating with us from beyond the grave? One man's near-death experience has brought forth a message from the people's princess that could change the course of humanity. John, an ordinary man with no connection to royalty, found himself in an extraordinary situation when his heart stopped beating. In the realm between life and death, he claims to have met Princess Diana, who shared wisdom so profound it has the power to transform our understanding of life's purpose. John Matthews was a man of science, a respected cardiologist who had dedicated his life to understanding the intricacies of the human heart. At 45, he was at the pinnacle of his career, known for his sharp intellect and unwavering skepticism. On this fateful day, John's routine began as it always did. A quick breakfast, a glance at the morning news, and a brisk walk to the hospital where he worked. As he strode through the hospital corridors, John's mind was already racing with the day's tasks. He had 3 surgeries scheduled, 2 patient consultations, and a mountain of paperwork to tackle. Little did he know that his ordinary day was about to take an extraordinary turn. It was just past noon when John felt the first twinge of discomfort in his chest. At first, he dismissed it as indigestion, a result of the hurried lunch he'd grabbed between appointments. But as the minutes ticked by, the pain intensified, spreading across his chest like a vice slowly tightening. John's medical training kicked in, and a cold realization washed over him. The symptoms were unmistakable. The crushing chest pain, the shortness of breath, the cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. He was experiencing a cardiac arrest. As a cardiologist, John knew all too well the grim statistics. Every minute that passed without intervention decreased his chances of survival. He stumbled towards the nurse's station, his vision beginning to blur. Code blue. He managed to gasp before collapsing to the floor. The hospital erupted into a flurry of activity. John's colleagues, people he had worked alongside for years, now fought to save his life. They administered CPR, readied the defibrillator, and pumped his body full of life-saving drugs. But despite their best efforts, John's heart refused to restart. As the medical team worked frantically, John experienced something beyond the realm of his scientific understanding. He felt a strange sensation of weightlessness, as if he were floating above his own body. He could see the doctors and nurses working on him, could hear the urgent shouts and the rhythmic beep of the heart monitor showing a flat line. Then, in a moment that defied all logic and reason, John felt himself being pulled away from the chaotic scene in the hospital. The sterile white walls and the smell of antiseptic faded away, replaced by a warm, enveloping light. John's consciousness, freed from the constraints of his physical body, began a journey into a realm he had never believed existed. As the boundaries between life and death blurred, John found himself crossing a threshold into the unknown. The skeptical doctor, who had always relied on hard facts and empirical evidence, was about to encounter something that would challenge everything he thought he knew about life, death, and the nature of existence itself. In that moment, suspended between life and death, John faced a paradigm shift that would forever alter his perception of reality. The veil between worlds had lifted, revealing a truth both beautiful and terrifying. But nothing could have prepared him for the familiar face he was about to see. A face that, by all logical reasoning, should not have been there at all. As John's consciousness drifted in this ethereal space, his senses were overwhelmed by a symphony of otherworldly stimuli. The air around him seemed to shimmer with an iridescent glow, pulsating with an energy that was both foreign and strangely comforting. Colors he had never seen before danced at the edges of his vision, defying description or classification. The very fabric of this realm seemed to be woven from pure light, creating an environment that was at once vast and intimate. Confusion and disorientation washed over John as he tried to make sense of his surroundings. His analytical mind, honed by years of medical training, struggled to reconcile this experience with his understanding of human physiology. He grappled with the possibility that this was merely a hallucination, a product of his oxygen-deprived brain in its final moments. Yet, the vivid clarity of his perceptions and the acute awareness of his own thoughts argued against this explanation. As John floated in this ethereal expanse, he became aware of sensations that defied his scientific understanding. He felt weightless, yet grounded, alone, yet profoundly connected to everything around him. Time seemed to lose all meaning, stretching and contracting in ways that made no logical sense. He experienced a deep sense of peace and well-being that contrasted sharply with the panic and pain of his last conscious moments in the hospital. These sensations aligned eerily with accounts of near-death experiences that John had dismissed throughout his career. The tunnel of light, the feeling of being outside one's body, the sense of profound peace, all elements he had attributed to the brain's reaction to trauma and oxygen deprivation. Now, experiencing these phenomena firsthand, John found his skepticism wavering. As he grappled with these conflicting thoughts, John noticed a figure approaching from the distance. At first, it appeared as a mere shimmer in the luminous atmosphere, gradually coalescing into a recognizable form. As the figure drew closer, John's disbelief gave way to shock and awe. The familiar silhouette, the gentle smile, the compassionate eyes. It was impossible, and yet undeniable. Standing before him, radiant and serene, was Princess Diana. John's logical mind rebelled against this impossibility. Diana had died years ago in a tragic accident that had shocked the world. How could she be here, in this place beyond life and death? Yet as he gazed upon her, John felt an inexplicable certainty that this was no illusion. Diana's presence exuded a warmth and understanding that transcended earthly bounds. Her smile held a wisdom that spoke of experiences beyond mortal comprehension. As she extended her hand towards John, he felt the last vestiges of his skepticism crumble. In this realm where the impossible became reality, John prepared to embark on a journey that would challenge everything he thought he knew about life, death, and the nature of existence itself. As John's hand met Diana's, a surge of warmth flowed through him, dispelling any lingering doubts about her reality. The princess's presence radiated a serenity that seemed to envelop the ethereal space around them. Her appearance was both familiar and transformed, her iconic features now imbued with an otherworldly luminescence that spoke of experiences beyond mortal understanding. "Welcome, John." Diana's voice resonated with a depth that transcended mere sound. "I know you have many questions, and I'm here to guide you through this journey." John's scientific mind wrestled with the impossibility of the situation. "But how? Why you?" he stammered, his skepticism clashing with the undeniable evidence of his senses. Diana's smile held a wisdom that seemed to span lifetimes. "In this realm, John, our roles are not defined by our earthly titles or achievements. I am here as your guide, because our souls are connected in ways that transcend physical existence." As Diana began to explain her role, John found himself captivated by the profound implications of her words. The concept of spirit guides, he realized, was not unique to this experience. Many belief systems across cultures and throughout history had spoken of benevolent entities that assisted souls in their spiritual journeys. "You see, John," Diana continued, her voice gentle yet filled with purpose, "every soul that transitions from the physical world requires guidance. We are here to help you understand the greater truths of existence and to prepare you for the choices that lie ahead." John's mind raced with questions. How many others had Diana guided? What truths awaited him? And most pressingly, what choice would he face? As if sensing his inner turmoil, Diana placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "I know this is overwhelming, John, but trust that you are exactly where you need to be." The wisdom I'm about to share with you has the power to transform not just your understanding of life and death, but the very fabric of human consciousness. The anticipation of this promised revelation sent a thrill through John's being. He found himself opening up to possibilities he had never before considered. The skeptical doctor who had entered this realm was giving way to a seeker of profound truths. "I'm ready," John said, his voice steady with newfound resolve. "Please, show me what I need to know." Diana's eyes sparkled with approval. "Then let us begin, John. What I'm about to reveal will challenge everything you thought you knew about the nature of reality, the purpose of life, and the interconnectedness of all souls." As Diana prepared to impart her wisdom, John felt a shift within himself. The boundaries of his understanding were about to expand in ways he could never have imagined. He stood on the threshold of knowledge that would not only change his own life, but potentially impact the entire world. The journey that had begun with his cardiac arrest was about to take him into the very heart of existence itself. The concept Diana was about to reveal had the power to heal humanity's deepest wounds and end centuries of conflict. But could John's mortal mind comprehend a truth so vast it encompassed the entirety of existence? Diana's eyes shimmered with an otherworldly light as she began to speak. "John, what I'm about to share with you may challenge everything you've ever believed about the nature of reality," she said, her voice resonating with a depth that seemed to echo through the cosmos. "In this realm, we see a truth that is often hidden from those still bound to physical existence. All souls are interconnected, part of a vast cosmic web of consciousness." John's brow furrowed as he tried to grasp the enormity of this concept. His scientific mind grappled with the implications, searching for some rational explanation. "But how can that be?" he asked, his voice tinged with a mixture of awe and skepticism. "We're all separate individuals with our own thoughts, feelings, and experiences." Diana smiled patiently, understanding the struggle within John's mind. "Think of it like this," she explained. "Imagine a vast ocean with each soul as a single droplet. While each droplet may appear separate on the surface, they are all part of the same body of water, flowing together, influencing and being influenced by one another." As Diana spoke, John felt a strange sensation washing over him. It was as if the boundaries of his being were slowly dissolving, expanding outward to encompass more than he had ever thought possible. He began to perceive faint echoes of other consciousnesses, whispers of joys and sorrows, not his own. "This interconnectedness," Diana continued, "is the foundation of empathy, compassion, and love. It's why we can feel the pain of others, why acts of kindness can ripple out to affect countless lives. Every thought, every action sends ripples through the entire web of consciousness." John's mind reeled with the implications. If this were true, it would fundamentally change how humans interacted with one another and with the world around them. Wars, discrimination, environmental destruction, all of these stemmed from a failure to recognize this fundamental unity. "But why can't we perceive this connection in our everyday lives?" John asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Diana's expression softened. "The physical world, with its illusions of separation, often obscures this truth. But there are moments, in deep meditation, in acts of selfless love, in profound spiritual experiences, when humans can glimpse this interconnectedness." As she spoke, John felt a profound shift in his perception. The ethereal realm around him seemed to pulse with life, and he could sense countless other presences, all uniquely individual, yet part of a greater whole. It was beautiful and terrifying, overwhelming in its vastness. "This knowledge comes with great responsibility," Diana said, her voice taking on a note of urgency. "Understanding our interconnectedness can transform how we treat one another and our world. It has the power to heal ancient wounds and bridge seemingly insurmountable divides." John felt a surge of emotion as the full weight of this revelation settled upon him. Tears welled in his eyes as he experienced for the first time a profound sense of unity with all of existence. He understood now that his life, every life, was infinitely precious and intimately connected to the whole. As John basked in this newfound awareness, Diana's voice pulled him gently back to attention. "But this is just the beginning, John," she said, a hint of anticipation in her tone. "There's more you need to understand about the true purpose of life itself." John's mind raced with possibilities. What could be more profound than the interconnectedness of all souls? Diana's eyes gleamed with ancient wisdom as she prepared to unveil a truth so fundamental it would redefine the very meaning of human existence. "The true purpose of life, John," Diana began, her voice resonating with a depth that seemed to echo through eternity, "is growth and love. Every challenge, every joy, every heartbreak you experience on earth is an opportunity for your soul to evolve." John's brow furrowed as he contemplated this revelation. He thought of his years as a cardiologist, the lives he'd saved, and the patients he'd lost. Had each of those experiences been carefully orchestrated for his spiritual development? Diana sensed his inner turmoil and continued, "The physical world, with all its complexities and hardships, serves as a crucible for the soul. It's through overcoming obstacles and facing our fears that we truly grow." As she spoke, John felt a wave of emotions wash over him. He recalled moments of triumph in the operating room, the warmth of connection with his patients, and the crushing weight of loss when he couldn't save a life. Each memory now took on a new significance, like pieces of a cosmic puzzle falling into place. "But what about missed opportunities?" John asked, his voice tinged with regret. "The times I chose my career over my family, the relationships I let slip away." Diana's expression softened with compassion. "Even our mistakes and regrets are part of the journey, John. They teach us valuable lessons and shape the course of our growth. The key is to learn from them and allow that knowledge to guide your future choices." As John absorbed this wisdom, he began to see his life in a new light. The endless hours he'd spent honing his medical skills, the compassion he'd developed for his patients, even the moments of doubt and fear, all had contributed to shaping his soul. "Understanding this purpose," Diana continued, "can profoundly affect how we experience life. When we recognize that every interaction, every challenge is an opportunity for growth and love, we approach life with greater awareness and intention." John felt a surge of excitement as he contemplated how this knowledge might influence his future. If he were to return to his earthly life, how differently would he approach his relationships, his work, his very existence? Diana's voice took on a note of urgency. "But John, this understanding comes with great responsibility. Once you've glimpsed the true purpose of life, you can't unknow it. It will color every decision you make, every interaction you have." As the full weight of this revelation settled upon him, John experienced a profound shift in perspective. His life, every life, was not just a random series of events, but a carefully crafted journey of spiritual evolution. Diana's expression changed, a hint of anticipation in her eyes. "There's more you need to know, John," she said, her voice lowering to almost a whisper. "What I'm about to share with you may be the most shocking revelation of all, the truth about unfinished business on Earth." Diana's expression grew solemn as she prepared to reveal the next profound truth. "John, our work doesn't end when we leave the physical realm. Many souls, including myself, have unfinished business on Earth, missions that extend beyond a single lifetime." John's curiosity piqued. "Unfinished business? What do you mean?" "There are pressing challenges facing humanity," Diana explained, her voice tinged with urgency. issues so complex and far-reaching that they require the collective effort of souls across generations to address. As Diana spoke, John felt a growing sense of unease. He had always been aware of the world's problems, but hearing them described as part of a grand cosmic plan gave them new weight. Climate change, social inequality, the threat of global conflict. These aren't just news headlines, John, Diana continued. They're opportunities for humanity to evolve, to rise above our baser instincts and embrace our true potential as interconnected beings. John's mind reeled as he tried to process the enormity of what Diana was suggesting. But how can we possibly tackle such massive issues? Diana's eyes sparkled with determination. It starts with individual actions, John. Every act of kindness, every choice made with awareness of our interconnectedness creates ripples that affect the whole. When enough people embrace this understanding, we can create a tipping point for global change. As Diana spoke, John began to see flashes of possibility, glimpses of a world where people truly understood their connection to one another and to the earth itself. He saw communities coming together to address local environmental issues, individuals reaching across divides to heal ancient wounds, leaders making decisions based on the long-term good of all rather than short-term gain. My own unfinished work, Diana said softly, involves fostering compassion and unity on a global scale. The world still struggles with division and conflict, but I believe that by sharing the truths you're learning here, we can help bridge those divides. John felt a sudden weight of responsibility settle upon him. Are you saying that I have a role to play in all this? Diana nodded, her expression both challenging and encouraging. Every soul has a part in this grand tapestry, John. Your experiences, your knowledge, and now these revelations, they've all prepared you for a unique mission. As the full implications of Diana's words sank in, John felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The idea that he could contribute to such monumental change was both thrilling and daunting. But how can I possibly share these truths? John asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Who would believe me? Diana's smile was reassuring. Those who are ready to hear will listen, John. Your task isn't to convince everyone, but to plant seeds of awareness that can grow over time. John nodded slowly, feeling a sense of purpose crystallizing within him. He realized that if he were to return to his earthly life, it would be with a profound new mission, to share the wisdom he had gained and contribute to humanity's collective growth. As this realization settled over him, Diana's expression shifted once more. Now, John, she said, her voice filled with gravity, you face a crucial decision, one that will determine not only your own path, but potentially the course of many lives on Earth. We often think of death as the end of all choices. But what if it's just the beginning? John was about to discover that his most profound act of free will would come in the afterlife, and its consequences would ripple across the world of the living. Diana's ethereal form seemed to shimmer as she presented John with an impossible choice. You stand at a crossroads, John, she said, her voice carrying the weight of cosmic significance. You can choose to remain here in this realm of peace and understanding, or you can return to your earthly life with the knowledge you've gained. John felt a surge of conflicting emotions. The serenity of this heavenly dimension was intoxicating, offering a respite from the pain and struggle of mortal existence. Here, he could bask in the warmth of universal love, free from the burdens of his earthly responsibilities. Yet, as he contemplated this option, he felt a nagging sense of incompleteness. On the other hand, the prospect of returning to his physical body filled John with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. He now possessed wisdom that could potentially transform countless lives, the interconnectedness of all souls, the true purpose of life. These were revelations that could reshape humanity's understanding of existence itself. But would anyone believe him? Could he effectively communicate these profound truths? As John wrestled with his decision, he felt the weight of free will pressing upon him. This choice was his alone to make, unburdened by the constraints of destiny or predetermined fate. It was a pure expression of his soul's deepest desires and highest aspirations. Diana watched him with compassionate eyes, seeming to understand the enormity of his internal struggle. "Remember, John," she said softly, "there is no right or wrong choice. Both paths have value and purpose. Trust in the wisdom of your soul." John closed his eyes, allowing the competing impulses to wash over him. He thought of his patients, his colleagues, his family, all the lives he touched in his earthly existence. He remembered the sense of purpose he felt as a doctor, the joy of healing, and the profound connections he formed with those under his care. Then, like a beacon cutting through fog, John felt a surge of clarity. The very fact that he was grappling with this decision was itself a sign. If he truly understood the interconnectedness of all souls and the importance of spiritual growth, how could he not return to share this knowledge? Opening his eyes, John met Diana's gaze with newfound resolve. "I need to go back," he said, his voice steady with conviction. "There's work to be done, isn't there?" Diana's smile was radiant with approval. "Indeed there is, John. Your journey is far from over. In fact, it's only just beginning." As John made his choice, he felt a shift in the ethereal energy around him. The heavenly realm began to fade, its brilliance dimming as the pull of his physical form grew stronger. Diana's voice echoed in his mind as he prepared for the transition back to earthly life. "Remember, John," she said, her words fading like a distant whisper, "you carry within you the power to change the world. Trust in the wisdom you've gained and let it guide your every step." With a mixture of anticipation and reverence, John surrendered himself to the journey back, ready to embrace his newfound purpose and share the profound truths he had discovered in the realm beyond. The transition back to John's physical form was unlike anything he could have imagined. As Diana's ethereal presence began to fade, he felt a sudden, intense pull, as if every cell in his body was crying out for his return. The serene warmth of the afterlife gave way to a cascade of sensations that overwhelmed his consciousness. John's journey back was not a gentle drift, but a tumultuous plunge through layers of awareness. He experienced flashes of light and darkness, accompanied by a cacophony of sounds that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. His body, which had felt weightless in the spiritual realm, now seemed impossibly heavy, as if gravity itself was conspiring to drag him back to earth. As he neared his physical form, John became acutely aware of the trauma his body had endured. The pain in his chest, which had been absent in the afterlife, returned with a vengeance. It was a searing, crushing sensation that threatened to overwhelm him. Yet, mixed with the pain, was an undeniable spark of life. His heart, once stilled, was fighting to beat again. The medical team surrounding John's body continued their tireless efforts to resuscitate him. They had been working for nearly 20 minutes, far beyond the point where most would have given up hope. But something, perhaps the same cosmic force that had guided John's spiritual journey, compelled them to persist. As John's consciousness merged with his physical form, he experienced the shock of defibrillation. The jolt of electricity coursed through his body, a stark contrast to the gentle energies of the spiritual realm. With each shock, John felt himself being pulled more firmly back into the world of the living. Suddenly, John's heart began to beat on its own. The monotonous flatline on the cardiac monitor gave way to the erratic spikes of ventricular fibrillation, then slowly settled into a more regular rhythm. The medical team watched in astonishment as their patient, who had been clinically dead for nearly half an hour, showed signs of life. John's first breath was a painful, gasping affair. His lungs, which had been still for so long, burned as they filled with air. Each subsequent breath became a little easier, a little deeper. The oxygen flowing into his system began to clear the fog of unconsciousness. As John's vital signs stabilized, the medical team sprang into action. They knew the dangers of prolonged cardiac arrest, the potential for brain damage, organ failure, and a host of other complications. Every second was crucial in minimizing these risks. Through it all, John's mind struggled to reconcile the profound truths he had learned in the afterlife with the harsh realities of his physical existence. The memory of Diana's wisdom seemed to flicker and fade like a dream upon waking. Yet, at his core, John knew that something fundamental had changed. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, John opened his eyes. The harsh, fluorescent lights of the hospital room were a far cry from the warm glow of the spiritual realm. Yet, as his gaze focused on the faces of his colleagues, their expressions a mix of shock, relief, and joy, John felt a profound sense of purpose. He had returned, carrying within him knowledge that could change the world. As the implications of his experience began to sink in, John realized that his greatest challenge still lay ahead. How could he convey the profound truths he had learned, and more importantly, how would his revelation impact the lives of those around him and the world at large? What happens when a man returns from death with knowledge that could reshape our understanding of existence? For John, the answer to this question would unfold in ways he never could have imagined. His journey was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. As John lay in his hospital bed, the weight of his otherworldly experience pressed upon him like a physical force. The sterile white walls and rhythmic beeping of machines seemed surreal compared to the ethereal realm he had just left. He struggled to reconcile the profound wisdom he had gained with the mundane reality of his recovery. The medical staff, once his colleagues, now hovered around him with a mixture of concern and curiosity. They peppered him with questions about his condition. But John found himself at a loss for words. How could he possibly explain the vastness of what he had experienced? The interconnectedness of all souls, the true purpose of life, and the guidance of Princess Diana herself, these concepts seemed to defy the boundaries of medical science. As John attempted to articulate his journey, he was met with skeptical glances and furrowed brows. His fellow doctors, trained in the rigors of scientific inquiry, struggled to accept his account. It was probably just a hallucination caused by oxygen deprivation, one suggested gently. Another offered, "The mind can play tricks on us in extreme situations." But John knew with a certainty that transcended physical evidence that what he had experienced was real. The wisdom imparted by Diana had fundamentally altered his perception of life and death. He found himself viewing his surroundings with new eyes, seeing the subtle threads of connection between all things. In the days that followed, John noticed profound changes in his attitudes and priorities. The drive for career advancement that had once consumed him now seemed trivial in comparison to the greater purpose he had glimpsed. He found himself drawn to moments of quiet reflection, seeking to reconnect with the sense of universal love he had felt in the afterlife. John's transformation was not unique. Many who have undergone near-death experiences report similar shifts in perspective. They often emerge with a decreased fear of death, a greater sense of purpose, and a deeper appreciation for life's interconnectedness. For John, this shift was accompanied by an overwhelming urge to share the knowledge he had gained. As he regained his strength, John began to contemplate how he could apply his newfound wisdom to his life and work. He envisioned using his medical expertise as a platform to explore the intersection of science and spirituality. The idea of bridging these seemingly disparate worlds filled him with a sense of purpose and excitement. Despite the skepticism he faced, John committed himself to sharing his message. He knew that the truths revealed to him by Diana had the power to transform not just individual lives, but the very fabric of society. As he prepared for discharge from the hospital, John felt a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. The world that awaited him was unchanged, but his perception of it had been irrevocably altered. With each passing day, John's resolve strengthened. He understood that his greatest challenge lay ahead, to translate the ineffable truths of the afterlife into words and actions that could inspire and enlighten others. As he took his first steps out of the hospital, John knew that his journey of spiritual awakening and global transformation was only just beginning. John's story inspires a spiritual awakening in others. The answer would challenge everything he thought he knew about communication, faith, and the very nature of truth itself. Armed with the profound wisdom imparted by Princess Diana, John embarked on a mission to share his otherworldly experience with the world. He began organizing talks at local community centers and writing articles for spiritual publications. His message was simple yet revolutionary. All souls are interconnected, and life's true purpose is growth and love. As John's story spread, he encountered a spectrum of reactions. Some were immediately captivated by his account, sensing the authenticity in his words and the transformative power of his message. Others, particularly those in the scientific community, met his claims with skepticism and even ridicule. Undeterred, John explored various avenues to communicate his experience. He gave interviews on podcasts dedicated to near-death experiences and spiritual awakening. He wrote a memoir detailing his journey from skeptical cardiologist to messenger of cosmic truths. In each retelling, John strived to convey the ineffable nature of his encounter with Princess Diana and the profound revelations she shared. Discussing spiritual experiences in a secular world proved challenging. John often found himself struggling to translate the abstract concepts of soul, interconnectedness, and universal love into terms that resonated with a skeptical audience. He learned to balance his account's mystical elements with relatable anecdotes from his medical career, bridging the gap between science and spirituality. As John's message reached more people, anticipation grew about its potential impact. Would his story spark a wider spiritual awakening? Could the wisdom he gained in the afterlife truly change hearts and minds on a global scale? Slowly but surely, John's sincerity and the profundity of his message began to resonate with people from all walks of life. A grieving mother found solace in the idea of soul interconnectedness. A disillusioned businessman rediscovered his purpose after hearing John speak about life's true meaning. Even some of John's former medical colleagues, initially dismissive, began to open their minds to the possibility of realities beyond the physical realm. John's journey from near-death experience to spiritual messenger was far from over. As his influence grew, he sensed that his story was beginning to have a wider societal impact. The seeds of a collective spiritual shift were being planted, one conversation at a time. As John prepared for his next speaking engagement, he couldn't help but wonder, how far would the ripples of his heavenly encounter with Princess Diana spread, and what profound changes might they bring to the world? As John's message rippled outward, an unexpected phenomenon began to take shape. What started as one man's extraordinary encounter was evolving into something far greater. Could a single near-death experience truly spark a global spiritual revolution? John's story resonated with people from all walks of life. Businessmen who once chased profits now sought purpose. Doctors trained in hard science found themselves exploring the mysteries of consciousness. Even skeptics, initially dismissive, began to question their long-held beliefs. the concepts of soul, interconnectedness, and life's true purpose struck a chord that transcended cultural and religious boundaries. As the movement grew, it faced significant opposition from established institutions. Religious organizations viewed John's message as a threat to their doctrines. Scientific communities dismissed his claims as unverifiable anecdotes. Media outlets alternated between sensationalizing his story and attempting to debunk it. Yet, despite these challenges, the awakening continued to spread. Individuals began applying John's teachings in profound ways. Families torn apart by grudges found the strength to forgive, recognizing their deeper connection. Environmental activists approached their work with renewed vigor, understanding the interconnectedness of all living things. Healthcare professionals began incorporating spiritual well-being into their treatment plans, acknowledging the link between mind, body, and soul. The collective spiritual shift started to influence society in unexpected ways. Companies began prioritizing ethical practices and employee well-being over short-term profits. Educational systems introduced mindfulness and emotional intelligence programs. Political discourse, often marked by division, showed glimmers of empathy and mutual understanding. As the awakening gained momentum, many wondered about its potential long-term effects. Could this new perspective on life and death reshape humanity's priorities? Would it lead to breakthroughs in science, pushing the boundaries of what we understand about consciousness and reality? The possibilities seemed both exciting and daunting. Gradually, a new perspective on life and death began to take hold in society. The fear of mortality that had long gripped humanity started to loosen its hold. People approached their lives with greater intentionality, understanding that each experience contributed to their soul's growth. The line between the physical and spiritual realms blurred, opening up new avenues of exploration and understanding. As this shift unfolded, the world stood on the brink of transformation. The implications for humanity's future were vast and largely unknown. Would this awakening lead to a more compassionate, interconnected global community? Or would the challenges prove too great, causing the movement to fade like so many before it? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain. The ripples from John's heavenly encounter with Princess Diana had set in motion a wave of change that would shape the course of human history for generations to come. Time marched forward, carrying with it the echoes of a divine message. But as John looked back on the years since his heavenly encounter, he couldn't shake a nagging doubt. Had humanity truly grasped the essence of Princess Diana's words, or was the most crucial part of her message still hidden in plain sight? A decade had passed since John's near-death experience, and the world had undeniably changed. The ripples of his encounter with Princess Diana had spread far and wide, touching lives in ways he never could have imagined. Yet, as he sat in his study, surrounded by letters from people whose lives had been transformed by his story, John found himself pondering the long-term impact of this spiritual awakening. The movement that had begun with his testimony had grown into a global phenomenon. People from all walks of life had embraced the concepts of soul interconnectedness and life's true purpose. Corporations had shifted their focus from pure profit to ethical practices and employee well-being. Educational institutions had incorporated mindfulness and emotional intelligence into their curricula. Even political discourse had shown glimmers of empathy and mutual understanding. But questions lingered about the sustainability of this shift. Would the newfound spiritual awareness continue to flourish, or would it fade like so many movements before it? John couldn't help but wonder if the true depth of Diana's message had been fully realized. As he reflected, John recalled the tangible changes he had witnessed in how people approached life and death. The fear of mortality that had once gripped society had loosened its hold. Instead, There was a growing acceptance of death as a transition rather than an end. People were living with greater intentionality, understanding that each experience contributed to their soul's growth. This shift in perspective had profound implications for global challenges. Environmental issues were being addressed with renewed vigor as people recognized their deep connection to the natural world. Conflicts that had once seemed intractable were being approached with a spirit of unity and shared purpose. The boundaries between science and spirituality were blurring, opening new avenues for understanding consciousness and reality. Yet as John contemplated these positive changes, he felt a sense of anticipation for what was yet to come. The spiritual awakening he had helped initiate was still in its infancy. What further revelations and transformations lay ahead? How would future generations build upon this foundation of interconnectedness and purpose? As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow across his study, John came to a profound realization. His journey, and indeed humanity's journey, had only just begun. The legacy of his heavenly encounter with Princess Diana was not a finite story with a neat conclusion, but an ongoing narrative of spiritual evolution. With this understanding, John felt a renewed sense of purpose. There was still work to be done, wisdom to be shared, and depths of interconnectedness to be explored. As he prepared to pen his thoughts for a new book, John knew that the true impact of his experience was still unfolding, its full potential yet to be realized. John's extraordinary journey from skeptical cardiologist to messenger of cosmic truths serves as a powerful reminder of the profound impact one person's experience can have on the world. His encounter with Princess Diana in the afterlife sparked a global spiritual awakening, challenging our understanding of life, death, and the interconnectedness of all souls. As we reflect on John's story, we're invited to consider our own life purpose and the hidden threads that bind us to one another and to the universe itself. What revelations might await us if we open our minds to the possibilities beyond our everyday perception? How might our lives change if we embrace the idea that every experience, every interaction contributes to our soul's growth? These are questions worth pondering as we navigate our own spiritual journeys. We encourage you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Have you ever had a moment that shifted your perspective on life and death? How do you connect with the concept of universal interconnectedness in your daily life? Your stories and insights may be the spark that ignites someone else's spiritual awakening, continuing the ripple effect that John's journey set in motion.